love poetry. If you don't like poetry, I'm sorry. But no, wow, it's great to be here with so much family and friends of us and my dad under the California sun.
What was that?
It's just fantastic. I want to thank everybody for coming, and especially thank Aunt Yeshi and Uncle John for having us here at the
Thank you.
historic Earwig Acres. Okay, having everybody here brings back so many memories. From Glendora to Whittier to San Marino to
San Francisco.
Newport.
Oh boy.
The SoCal memories, okay? And to Balboa Island.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Aunt Jean.
And it's fabulous to see, the legacy of or part of the legacy of so many of the family. From my great Aunt Jean to my Aunt Patricia and Uncle Eddie and Aunt Darlene. So it's really special.
Yeah.
And now I wish I had spent as much time, doing this speech as I had doing a Spotify playlist. But the last time I was here, I think we were celebrating at a big family party. We were celebrating Curtis's graduation, UC Santa Barbara, and it was fabulous. I think maybe before that we were celebrating cousin Bradley's first marriage, and I think I lost a topsider at that celebration. And I remember distinctly the Sunday after, I had for the first time some egg casserole that my cousin had made, and it was incredible. It was like pure magic. And so thank you, cousin Nancy, for that. And I
Yes.
miss her and so many others that aren't here.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was Jeanette. I don't know.
It was probably Nancy.
No, I think she was here.
Yeah, she's a better cook.
The
Yeah.
best to cook.
The best cook. Anyway, like I said, if you,
Everybody
if you
agrees. Yeah,
hate
she was a better cook.
poetry, and I don't get a lot of it, but sorry, because there's going to be a little bit. His dad loved a lot of things, but he particularly loved poetry, and so, and I'll have a few more comments later, but for right now, I'm going to turn you over to my sister Anna.
Do you want me to stand here?
Ready to take us picture.
Am I okay right here?
They're making a movie. I was going to have. Oh, okay. They're making a movie of it. Who is doing it?
Kelly.
Looks like Kelly was.
Oh, there she is. Yay.
Don't forget your bush auntie.
All right. Well, like Aaron said, it's so great to see everyone here today. Thank you so much for being here. And also, like Aaron said, I also maybe didn't appreciate the poetry quite as much. Not sure I understand much of what my dad wrote, but in his honor, I am making an effort today.
Okay.
And I think he would be proud because I very recently came upon this poem and it resonated with me because it's fairly simple and easy to understand. For those of you who are maybe like me, you might appreciate this. And you might want to get a tissue out. And I will, I'll try to keep it together.
Do it.
All right. Yeah. So the poem is called Death is Nothing at All. Okay, let me make sure I can focus here. You know what? I'm just going to take these off. I'm good. All right. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And the old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you for an interval, somewhere very near, just round the corner. All is well, nothing is hurt, nothing is lost. One brief moment, and all will be as it was before. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again.
Thank you. That is really great. So great.
Cousin Peter?
Oh, no, right now? Okay.
That'd be awesome.
All right. I'll try to sing loud. I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the bay, the children's carousel, the wishy chestnut trees, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
Thank you, Peter. That was beautiful. I think we're going to hear next from Dad's good friend, Jerry Burke, who was sort of a partner in crime with poetry and whatnot. And they shared some correspondence. And I think we may hear from Dad through one of his poems, even.
It's possible.
Huh. We don't know. This could be 4 minutes or what, an hour maybe, Jerry? No.
Well, I'll start out by telling you that I got a call from Aaron last night, and he was saying hello, glad to see you, hope you're going to be there, but he was really calling to make sure that I had an understanding of what the time constraints are.
No,
So, what's that thing?
that's a microphone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So he asked me, and I said, well, what do you have in mind? And he said, about how long will it take? I said, well, you know, I hope to keep it under an hour. And there was a silence on the other end, and that was clearly not what we were intending at all. And then when I said, I'm only kidding, 5 minutes max, and we'll all be done, and everything will be fine. So that's how we started out. So I should tell you a little bit about where I came from with Jeff. Jeff, I started out because I married his niece, and he and I didn't know him at the time, but he wanted to. He was a poet, and he wrote later on. He wrote a nice little thing to me. I have a long time, years and years now of emails between Jeff and I.
Mm-hmm.
And so all I had to do was just put it in my email, Jeff B, and pages of it came out, but I just pulled out a few of them. So we started out at my wedding. It was an important day in my life, of course, and I'm going to read the start of this thing to you, because he says, I don't remember how we got into this regard for each other. I suppose it starts with one of your friends, maybe the best man, reading Fern Hill at your wedding to Pam. Fern Hill was a poem written by Dylan Thomas, and the guy that did it, a fellow named Tom Gage. And he had a great mellifluous voice, and he affected a kind of a nice Irish brogue, and it was quite a rendition, and made a big impression on Jeff. So he said, also I asked you to read a poem at my wedding to Barb Bonani, which you did with much gusto. I'm sure if I looked at my file of poems sent back and forth with friends, I'd find some of your selections. I often connect you to a poem about a brash and colorful woman. I don't know who that poem is. Could have been Pam. She's a brash and colorful woman. And then he goes on to say about so forth, and he says, and then he had sent me a bunch of poems, and he said, no need to worry about hurting my feelings with adverse criticism. Not that I'm not a delicate creature. It's just that I'll listen seriously to whatever you have to say. She said, I never doubted your judgment, and so forth. So then, here's moving ahead here. He sends me these things out of the blue. This is from Jeff. Philosophizing. Jeff was an intellectual writer, and I wasn't. He just instinctively, he read the great poets with more attention than I did, and some of the great philosophers. And he just sent this to me out of the blue. It's perfectly true, as philosophers say, that life must be understood backwards. But they forget the other proposition, that it must be lived forward. And if one thinks about that proposition, it becomes more and more evident that life can never really be understood in time, simply because at no particular moment can I find the necessary resting place from which to understand it.
Right.
Backwards.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff that I would get from Jeff.
Oh gosh.
Encouraging me to think.
Oh boy.
And so he writes this. Well, I read this part. Three. I wish we could. This is I think on December 24th. Yes, I wish we could sit down for a few days and talk. I feel like I'm always trying to catch up with you. and he's talking about Jeffers' poems, a person that I regarded, and says that if I read him right, he gave up on love, on pleasure, even joy. And maybe he's a great poet, but maybe he's not a great poet, but he's a good one. And then he goes on to say, and this is what I find interesting about Jeff. He says here, the only point of writing is to write a masterpiece, or at least something that will last 10 years. And I would argue, I'd say maybe 10 minutes. But, he says, and I still believe, even though, as I told you in my last note, I'm ready to concede that my talent is limited. However, even though I have a terrible aversion to facing a blank sheet of paper, I'm surprised that I've written the poetry I have in the last few years. One way, one depressing thin volume at most, he says. I hadn't really thought that I'd be spending my time this way. Reading, listening to music, and going to museums and art galleries is so much easier. I do get off my ass, Jerry. I don't just sit on a chair all day taking long naps. I spend weekdays climbing stairs, swimming, blah blah blah, and if weather's clear, I'll do 20 miles on my bike. So at that point, I'd like to read you one of his poems, which I like this poem because it's one of his less intellectual poems and completely available, and it's about, I would say, it's called Eye on the Ball, and it's about, from Jeff's point of view, what's important and what's worthy of paying attention to. So, he says, and this is in this characterization, Jeff is now the baseball coach, and with the T-ball and little kids. I'm crouched in left field, a fist molding the pocket of my glove, eyes fastened on the batter, the perfect model of a coach. Deployed 10 feet to my left is the youngster for whom I pose. So, twice now I've had to chide him to stand, not sit on the ground. Dutifully he rises and for minutes ceases twisting like a leaf in the wind. I look, and he's copied my stance, unvexed by the tedium of play. Then, coach, coach, I hear him call. What is it, Paul? I shoot back, not wanting to lose momentum. I stay down, motion the batter. Futile. Paul has left the game. Look over there, he says, pointing. He saunters past me off the field, as though he were going to greet it. At last his world comes into focus for Jeff, the coach. Only a child feasting on marvels would spot a white poodle prancing like a show dog a block away. So that's the charming Jeff. So then all this stuff. I'm going to finish up with this, which is another Jeff. This is called Prospectus. It's an interesting assemblage of truisms from Jeff. And he says, he makes a statement and then he comments on it. Just a series of them. A glance and a smile. Only a miser spurns love at first sight. A kiss and a hug without adornment. Intimacy, the quintessential ordeal. He's an intellectual. Propagation. No, coitus. This is a good one.
Coitus.
Propagation, sugar-coated. Marriage, the promise of comity. And I would add, divorce, the failure of comity. Tolerance for innocence and stupidity. Generosity costs you nothing.
Yeah.
Sympathy, honor your own good fortune. Sacrifice, swallowing hard won't kill you. Confession, plain spoken as occurs in churches. Apology because you've come undone. Forgiveness, the touchstone of integrity. Patience at every opportunity. And finally, constancy. I have it. So I have to say that I just loved Jeff, and I loved our friendship that went for many years, and I was astounded by it. And I actually went out to Shreveport to see him and visit with him for a while, and he was always Jeff Brainard, a thwarted intellectual and a wonderful character. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry. Curtis?
Okay. Should I come over there? Should I stay here?
Yeah,
I'll
come
come
on.
over here. Everybody's facing on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, firstly, I'm going to get my margarita. That was not firstly. That was not supposed to be firstly, but it was firstly. I want to thank everybody for coming. You know, after my dad died in September, and we were obviously thinking immediately about memorials and what we wanted to do, and at least for me, you know, it took no time at all to think of this place, to think of, as Aaron said, the storied Earwig Acres, because he loved this place, you know, this house that his brother built and this house that his other brother maintained. And I love this place. I haven't been back here in 20 years probably, like Aaron said, since I came back once after the college graduation party, but I think it was just a small visit with the Eklund family, and I didn't get to see a lot of the rest of you, which is a shame, because I really did love coming down here as a kid, and how often we all got to spend time together. And you know, among other things, it was in the vast backfield of this property that my dad taught me to drive. When I was, it probably started when I wasn't even old enough to know it was started before I was old enough to reach the pedals. He would put me on his lap and let me steer around that blue Datsun pickup truck that he and my Uncle John and my Uncle Eddie took down to Baja on that famous road trip after Eddie got sick, and my dad taught me to drive on that over the course of years until it was, you know, my legs were long enough that I could work that clutch, which was not the easiest clutch you've ever met in your life, I'm sure. And we would just go around the perimeter of that fence slowly, learning to drive. And you know, the world's gone automatic, and I still attribute my ability to drive a manual transmission on the streets of San Francisco to my dad teaching me in this back field. And I don't know whatever happened to that Datsun, but you know, that was a beloved automobile for sure. And I wrote a poem that, you know, as Aaron said, there's going to be a lot of poetry. I wrote a poem for my dad. But before I get to that, just a few other remembrances. I was lucky enough that I had so many adventures with my dad. So many great memories. I could stand up here all day. Telling stories about the good times we had. And the different places we went, mostly around the U.S., but overseas, probably the grandest adventure was the one we made to Egypt when after I'd graduated college, after the party here in Atascadero. I split and went on a big trip around the world for a couple years, and my dad came and met me in Egypt when I finally landed in Cairo to visit John and Yeshi and everyone else. And I don't know, we must have spent a couple weeks there, went down the Nile, visited the pyramids. It was great. But actually the story, you know, the one thing I want to mention is our last great adventure together, which was 2 years ago. And I've been living in Paris the last 4 years. And my dad came and visited me in the fall, in September, I guess it was, of 2023. And, you know, I was surprised he made it. He kind of thought he was done with travel, certainly big trips like that. But I was persistent and wouldn't accept no for an answer. And so he finally got his act together to come to visit me. In fact, it got delayed. I remember he was, the day before he was supposed to come, I call him and say, you know, how are you doing? But he just hurt his back. He just hurt his back real bad and had to postpone. And talking to me that day, he started crying. He was so disappointed. And I honestly don't know. I probably had seen him cry before. I'm sure I had, but not many times. Not many times. But he made it. He made it over, you know, a week or so later after his back was better. And we just had the best time. He was there for a couple weeks. And I was so worried about him, you know, he had started to lose his balance a little bit. I think maybe some of you know in the later years. And, you know, I was going out with him around the city, but I didn't, you know, I also had to work and didn't get to go out with him every day. But he wasn't going to be deterred, you know, so he put this card in his pocket, you know, in both French and English saying, look, you know, I'm Jeff Brainard, and if you find me, here's who to call. But he did it, and he did it a lot on his own, and with the help of, when I couldn't go out with him, Sarah went out with him a couple days, and he had such a great time. And after he got back, what was amazing was he told me immediately, he was already thinking about the next time. He was already, you know, this guy who'd hung it up and was done with travel was already thinking about his next trip. And in fact, on the next trip, we were going to do Paris, and then we were going to take the train up and do London as well. But actually, what I really want to say was something that I found in October. After he died, I went down to Louisiana to help Aaron pack up his things. And among, you know, so many treasures, I found grammar books of French language, not recently purchased with like perfect spines, bent up and used and annotated and earmarked. There were flashcards that he'd written out by hand and note cards. And I mean, he was trying to teach himself French, and I had I had no idea. But it just, you know, goes back to everything, you know, that I think we've all been talking about today, that insatiable curiosity. He was never going to be an old dog that didn't want to learn new tricks. You know, he was always going to be looking for something new, and I couldn't believe it. And, you know, it was just also so much of what he was learning also revolved around us, his kids, I think. And I was so impressed by that, the interest he took in what we were doing. And what we were up to. So next, I'm going to ramble for a little bit. But next story, this is just so random, but that's how it goes with these things. Well, you know, after he died, Aaron had his phone and was sending us pictures and text messages from his phone, which is how I stumbled on this text message thread. From Christmas of 2023, and he'd sent us a picture of the tree that he and Linda had set up in Shreveport, and there was a little fire. It was all very pretty. Some presents under that, and he sent a message to me and Aaron and Kelly and Anna saying, "We are waiting for the children, wherever you are, to come down and get your presents." You know, I think he was always thinking of his kids. You know, he loved us, and I never had to doubt that, ever. He always, I think, made me feel so loved. You know, I never had to wonder, was my dad proud of me? And I'm thankful for that, because he, you know, I know that. I know he was proud of all of us, because he was such a loving guy, and he took the time to tell us. But there was that, and then a week later, New Year's Day of 2024, he sends us another message that I love. He says, "Happy New Year, y'all. Now we can take down the tree, put the decorations back in their boxes, and store them in the attic. Next, sit back with a glass of eggnog and a handful of peanut brittle," of which we have some, I think, around here, because he did love his peanut brittle, you know, "and think about what it all meant. If you can't think of anything, that's okay. Just smile and be happy." You know, that was the thing. Jerry, thank you. I loved it. And Peter, God, you brought me to tears. That was, so moving. But Jerry, your remarks were great. I mean, he pushed people to think, except when he didn't, you know. He always did encourage people to think, but he never really made thinking the end, you know. He never made it a condition, you know. And he was also happy at times to just shut that curious brain off, you know, light up, well, thank God he kicked the habit in the end, light up a stogie, mix a margarita, you know, and just kick back and enjoy the good life. And so I was going to end there, but I'll tell you one more story because it just happened, and it's a weird story, but it's fun. So, you know, Aaron and Kelly and Ann and I met up on Wednesday morning up in San Francisco and did this memorial road trip down the Pacific Coast Highway, which has just been absolutely fantastic. I think Dad would have loved it. And by the way, I think he'd just be so happy here today, and to see all of us and everything here, he would just love it. He would just love it. Anyway, it's been so great because, I mean, it's lucky. I do get to see, you know, my brother and my sisters fairly often, but I don't think we ever, like, there's always other people around, right? You know, we're always doing something with bigger groups and stuff. So this chance for us to go down the road together has really been wonderful. And we got a couple more days to go after this, which is great. But, so we've got my dad right here. And we've been, you know, scattering ashes in beautiful locations along the way. And to do this, we decided we needed this special ceremonial scoop. And so we assigned the scoop finding task to the best person for the job, my sister Kelly, who was the consummate, you know, product researcher. And she came up with, this, you know, a bevy of scoops for us to choose from, you know, metal, bamboo, short-handled, long-handled, different shapes and sizes. You know what it felt like is that, you know, you guys seen Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, where he's got all the chalices up on the wall and you got to pick one, you know, choose wisely, you know. And so we picked one. It was this beautiful brass scoop, and we were using it. It's been with us. And then the other day we are at Alice Pfeiffer State Beach. Julia Pfeiffer State Beach. Who's Alice Pfeiffer? Anyway, Julia Pfeiffer State Beach up in Big Sur. And we're sprinkling some of Dad's ashes on the beach there. It's just lovely. And then, you know, my dad also loved throwing a Frisbee around. So Aaron and I have been throwing a Frisbee kind of at stops along the way up and down the coast. But after the ashes have been sprinkled, I put the scoop in my back pocket and I go out for a long Frisbee pass from Aaron. I've got a beer in one hand, of course, and I'm running down the sand, and Aaron throws up a high floater. I'm going back for it, running backwards. At the very end, I realize I'm up against a low rock right here, and I'm like, oh, God, you know, I got to do this. So I guard the beer, grab the Frisbee, and just take it on the butt real hard. Hurt like a son of a gun, especially because I landed right on that scoop, right on that hard brass scoop, which has absolutely no give. I snapped the handle off it. I'm gonna have to solder that back together.
Dad
but-
scooped back.
Yeah, exactly. As Aaron said, Dad scooped back. But that's the thing, I was kind of thinking about this, and I guess I'll mention the story for two reasons. I got this huge bruise right here. I'm not going to show y'all. I showed these guys. It's not pretty. Big old hematoma. And now every time we got this big cushy car we're driving in, every time I get in the seat, it still hurts. And I guess I mentioned this story, well, for one, because I brought this pass down, both feet inbound, no beer spilled. And I know that I owe my Frisbee prowess to my dad. As I said, he started to lose his balance there at the end. But a couple years ago, I was down in Louisiana, and we had one good last throw. And even with these balance issues, over an uneven field, he was still one of the best. And the other reason, it is kind of weird. Somehow, my dad probably, I don't think he ever spanked me in my life, but somehow I kind of think of this as Dad's last spanking, just a little reminder to be good, take it easy, and enjoy life. So anyway, that's all the reminiscing I'll do, and now I'll read this poem for him. I definitely, my dad got me into writing and literature, and is probably the reason I spent 16 years as a journalist, because I wanted to write and also make a little bit of money, very little bit. And he got me into poetry. I think, maybe like Anna, I don't know. There was definitely he liked some of that impenetrable stuff that was just too much for me, totally inaccessible. And as much as I loved poetry, I never did much writing, but of poetry at least. But I figured I owed him this one, and so this is called "The Red and Orange Shirt." He was a big guy. I could lie on his back as comfortably as any bed, and I was happy there, or climbing and hanging from his lanky frame. At other times, when he was busy and couldn't hold the weight of me, I would find one of his mini cotton t-shirts and hide inside. A fabric cavern with broad red and orange stripes was my favorite, soft and approaching threadbare, so that if I extended my limbs and stretched the material, my burrow would grow brighter. I could spend half an hour or more under that shirt, playing with marbles or pickup sticks, occasionally peeking out a sleeve to see who was around. Now I'm the jungle gym. My boys climb up into my lap or onto my shoulders, a willing tree there for their delight. They lay on my back, somehow more comfortable there than on the plush mattress beneath me. I haven't seen that red and orange striped t-shirt since I was a child, and I can't find a photo, but it shelters me still. Well, thank you all for coming.
Yeah. Just a couple of last things I wanted to say about Dad. For those of you that knew him well, he was a bit of a Renaissance guy. He built cabins in Mendocino, and in a flat we had in San Francisco, he built this daybed that it was fine cabinetry and fabulous finish. He could write in fine calligraphy and was damn good at drawing and painting. He could sail most boats and could tell you the difference between a sloop, a yawl, and a ketch. He studied architecture and literature and was well versed in both. He studied history all his life and loved to follow politics, and was an amateur astronomer, and he could tell you about when the moon was waxing and when it was waning. And he enjoyed that. And a bunch of constellations, most. He loved going to plays, and especially Shakespeare, and loved dragging his children to those events. But for all of his intellectual endeavors and curiosities, most of all, Dad loved the simple things. He loved time with family, the beach, sand, and the sun. Vacations and backpacking and car camping. The mountains, he loved the mountains. And he loved to throw a frisbee. He loved his cigarettes and cigars and inexpensive scotch and nuts and peanut brittle. He loved long drives and drinking Mickey Big Mouth. Malt liquor. Remember those things, those big old things? It was fabulous. It looked like a grenade. Kind of hit like one too. He loved stopping at roadside produce stands, and he was a tall, dark, and handsome guy. And over the course of that life, had more than one relationship. I don't know if Dad was lucky or unlucky at love, but he loved all of his wives. And most of all, he had a love for what was true and honest. And he taught me integrity by his deeds, not by his words. And the first poem I can remember him reading was, by heart, reciting, I should say, is William Blake's The Tiger. And it goes, tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what a mortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry. And it's about divine power, and it's maybe the most best known poem in the English language, or one of them, and well regarded. And but I would just say that Dad wasn't a fearful tiger, but he had a beautiful symmetry, and his life burned bright. So, and with that, we're going to have some food in a while, but I would love to invite anybody to, if they have anything they want to remember about Dad, to please give us a story or two. Nick? Yes. Here.
I'm left-handed, it goes in backwards. Hi, Jeff. I'm glad he's here. I'm glad Kelly's here. And I'm glad Aaron's here. I've not seen them in 62 years. 62 years, so I want your mom to get a hold of me.
Okay. We'll have that done.
Have that done? Okay. Because Judy and I were very good friends before Jeff met her. I was telling this young lady over here, I was Jeff's roommate at Cal Poly. We're 1960, we're Chase Hall. If there's any remains left, I would encourage you to drop a teaspoon at Chase Hall. You could probably Google it and get there. We were second floor on the corner, right across the street from the football game. Though we could never afford to go to football games. We were super poor. And what I loved about Jeff is he had a motorcycle. He taught you to drive?
And Curtis. And
Curtis, okay. I wanted him to teach me to drive a motorcycle. But he said, no, you got a bad arm, you're imbalanced, you can't do that. So we did a lot of hitchhiking. So one of the stories I like to share with you is our hitchhiking. Totally changed my life, totally directed my life. So one of the reasons I'm glad to say something here is there may be things about Jeff that you don't know that I'd like to share with you. In architectural engineering, he was by far the best architectural student in our class. In those days, you could put everybody's work up on the wall and the prof would critique it. It's not that easy anymore. Jeff would win the competition. And lo and behold, he was the best damn engineer in the class too. The math, the science, the vision was unbelievable. He didn't do much poetry when he was with me. We were just trying to survive in architecture school. I loved it. He was sort of so about it because he left after a year or two. Totally disappeared from my life for probably 10 years, and then he knocks on the door and he says, I need a job. So he worked for me for a few years in San Mateo after I came back from Hawaii. Back to being a student. He was not only the best architectural student, the best engineering student. We had to take history of architecture too. So he was the best history student. And damn it, if he wasn't the most good looking and handsome. The rest of us, I mean, in those days at Cal Poly, the ratio was 7 men to 1 woman. I think the ratio with Jeff was better than that. This is my little girl, Lola. She'll not go away, okay? I'm talking, you be quiet. Okay, so the thing that changed my life, directed my life, was Jeff and I hitchhiking to Yosemite. 1960, 61, it was in the sort of the winter time. And this was American Institute of Architects convention in Yosemite Valley. Our profs were going, students were catching rides with instructors, and they all took off and left Jeff and Nick Watry behind because we forgot to ask. We had no wheels, so we got out and started to thumb it. We thumbed it from San Luis Obispo to Fresno. 41, there was no 5 then, but 57. We get to Fresno, and it's really getting late at night. So we're standing on the corner. Jeff has a better arm than me, so he's got his finger as taller too. And this couple stopped in a little red, what was the kind of car? I'll think of it in a minute. So they were retired. He was an attorney. And so we're driving to Yosemite Valley. They're going the same place we're going. Thank goodness. Jeff and I fall asleep in the back of this car. Nash Rambler. And yellow. It was yellow, not red. And so the man, the attorney, he says, you're engineering students at Cal Poly. Yes. He said, do you know anything about the electrical pre-stressing of concrete? Electrical pre-stressing of concrete. We go, no. We get to the valley, and everything's quiet. If you've ever been to Yosemite Valley, we were at the village. That was where the conference was. The doors were closed and locked and dark. So we go to cross the street to Camp 7. This is again in the fall, early winter. There's a little snow on the ground, bare dirt. I brought a sleeping bag. Guess what Jeff brought? A blanket off the bed. So I lay I lay down to go to bed in my sleeping bag. He's got his blanket. It gets really cold, right? Probably close to freezing. We're snuggling up. We're best buds, we're roommates, we're snuggling up, trying to stay warm. And this is a true story. He wakes me up and he says, you hear that bear? Honest to God, the bear was sniffing at our feet. Fortunately, we had no popcorn in our pants or anything like that, so we were able, it went away. Thank God didn't chew our toes off. So Jeff goes, well, this is not a good place. Let's go into the bathroom. So the bathroom is open to the public, nobody there, all the lights are on, never to be turned off. Right. So we're laying, he in a blanket, me in a sleeping bag, with our feet in the urinal. He's tall, I'm sort of tall, and we're able to make that work. Then about 6 in the morning, this gentleman comes in who had been camping in a real camper. Hey, I'm going to put you over here. You mind holding her? Thanks. Thanks. You behave yourself. Okay, so we were sound asleep. This man comes in to brush his teeth and he goes, oh, what is this? Wakes us up. It's about, again, 6:30 in the morning. So we get up. We had no change of clothes. And we go across the street to the building, to the village. And here's all our classmates waking up in the lounge chairs, in the warm building, and say, hi, you guys, outside the window. Do you mind opening the door so we could come in and get warm? And they did. So sort of the end of the story and the beginning of another is I went up to my professors and I said, do you know anything about the electrical pre-stressing of concrete? Nope. And at a sophomore at Cal Poly, I spent 3 years in developing that thesis and what was called the Cal Poly Senior Project. And the end of the short story, the end of the story is simply, I'm one of the world expert in pre-stressed concrete. I have designed more post-tension concrete parking structures, of which you wrote a story about in UC Santa Barbara, than most, well, all living people, about 3,000. I am retired, sort of. I picked up fine arts painting like this young lady, and something got in my way. Old clients call, and now I'm designing a parking structure for employees up in Squaw Valley. Now it's called Tahoe Palisades. And the biggest project of my life. Oh, and also, when Jeff came to work for me, he didn't even get a degree in architecture. But I had to go to him to have him look at my designs and my drawings. Because it's like this magnificent mind. And I have to tell you, children, sometimes he'd say, yeah, you know, Jeff Brainard has in brain. Okay. So he had a really strong ego, which, you know, in my day, that was not a good thing to carry. But we all respected Jeff and he owned it and we were glad to give it to him. So the children that are here today, you have really great brains, I'm pretty sure. And I honor you about that. Okay, back to, I'm going to finish this up. There's so many stories. So I give Jeff in that you know, that trip to Yosemite as the beginning of my career. And just bless him for that. Thank him for that. And I'll leave you with one last story. And I could, like Aaron, I could go on forever and ever. One last story was, I'm surprised he was smoking cigars. Because we're in architecture school, and we all decided, maybe at Jeff's suggestion, that we start smoking cigars. So in those days, there was no computer-aided design. You drafted with your hand and you were over the board. And when the tobacco ashes fall on the drawing, that was the end of that. So if Jeff had just kept drawing, he would never have smoked. Thank you. Okay, Lola. Thank you so much.
I've been looking for the picture too. I was hoping maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Here we go.
we got one for you.
Oh!
How's that? I don't know.
It's just for
For
the.
those of you
Oh,
who
for
don't
that?
know, this
Okay.
is Cousin Bradley, the ice climbing
No.
maniac. It was just on an ultralight with a German in Baja, California. Some German guy flies into the beach and Brad jumps right on. And up they go. So
It was fun.
Thrill seeking.
Yeah, and this is where this story comes from, Baja. And I was asking for the pictures, and it's the little blue truck, and it was the time Uncle Jeff and Uncle John and Dad went to Baja. Uncle Jeff was longer than the truck. It was the little, I think the same one you're talking about driving around here. It was a little Datsun, the littlest ones you've ever seen. It had a little camper shell on. And like I said, Uncle Jeff was longer than the whole truck, you know. And they chose to go to Baja, and I just got done from down there. I wouldn't even do it even in a bigger, newer truck. And they took that little Datsun, and they went down to Cabo San Lucas. I thought it was a suicide run. I mean, it was crazy. I would have never done it. Yeah. And then I would also like to share a story about how Uncle Jeff came and Mom and Dad. I don't know if it's appropriate, but how Uncle Jeff would come stay with us, and the story that Mom and Dad always laughed about it and everything, how they were making a big bowl of tuna and everything, and Uncle Jeff came up like that and liked it so much that he drooled down into the bowl. It didn't matter. Mom and Dad were so elated with that. Without mentioning how Dad used to make tacos. And my dad used to make these tacos, and he used the worst chorizo in the world. It was so greasy they would have to give rags for napkins. And between the three brothers, they would have a war who could eat the most tacos. Yeah. And that's it.
Anybody else?
I will share a little story. Let's clip this on there somehow. Okay. All right. I have many memories of Jeff, but just kind of on the theme of him being the man of the world in terms of all the things that he knew about and cared about and was curious about and was interested in. When I was in college, we got on the phone one time, and I don't even remember what was the reason why we were talking to each other on the phone, because it wasn't like we had this, relationship that we called each other all the time. But we were talking, and he said, he goes, well, now that you're going to this fancy college, I figure you should know some stuff. And I was always a little intimidated of Jeff because he, I knew he liked poetry, and he read all this really erudite literature, and it wasn't anything I really knew that much about. And so I said, okay. And he goes, well, there's something I'd like to talk to you about. He said, I'm reading Ulysses for the, fifth time or something, and I'd like to discuss it with you. I'm going, Jeff, I am a marine biology major. I don't have time to read Ulysses right now, nor would I even think about reading Ulysses, because it was just like, and he goes, okay, well then what do you want to talk about? It's like, well, I just got back from a backpacking trip in the Sierras. And he goes, oh, where'd you go? And we just started talking, and there were all these common area things that we knew about, places we'd been, same places we'd been. We talked about favorite places and places we didn't like, and how bad certain hikes were and how easy other hikes were, and fishing and all kinds of stuff. And then I think we sort of exhausted that topic. And then it was, well, what's the rest? What's your brother up to? What's Jack doing? What's Nancy doing? Blah, blah. And we talked about that. And then he was talking about the kids and what the kids were doing. And I think we ended up on the phone for at least an hour and a half, just covering all these different topics. And I just sort of thought of this recently because I talked to him last year, and we talked a few times and traded emails after, and he sent me his book of poetry, and was just really interested in knowing more about the family, and did I have more information about my mom and her family, and the car accident that killed Curtis, and various different things like that. And I thought he knew all this stuff, but we found there was actually a lot of stuff that he didn't know, so I started kind of slowly doing some research but I haven't had much time until recently. So now I'm retired, I have more time, and so I've put together everything that I had as far as a family tree, and it's this big 8 pages stuck together of stuff. So if you have a chance, look at it and find yourself and fill in blanks, because I don't have everything, and I need to get from you eventually if you have the more Brainard sort of background, because I can go back on the Goodman side of the family back to the mid 1800s, but am missing that. But I know that's something he would really love to see, is sort of having us all be able to see where we came from. And he was a great guy. I miss him.
Okay. So I'm niece Pam. Patricia was Jeff's oldest sister, oldest sister, and I'm one of her daughters, the only daughter. Anyways, I like to look at life as chapters. And, I think about Jeff and I think about how extraordinary and interesting and enchanting his chapters have been through his life. I mean, it's amazing. But what you don't know is that I got to be one of those chapters. So from the early 1990s, Jeff and I were compadres, and we exercised together, and we hung out together, and we got Russell and my sons together. And so I got a slice of Jeff, which wasn't intellectual, it was feeling. And, that was the time when I was divorced, Peter was divorced, Jeff was divorced shortly, little chap, and we got to hang out. Yeah. So anyways, we spent a lot of time together in the early 90s. Do you think this thing works?
Yeah. Well, I think so. I think it's attached.
Hello?
Oh.
Okay.
And Yashay, can I clip this on you? Or you can just hold it.
One word.
You can just hold it.
What is this?
It's just a microphone for Kelly's.
For the recording.
I'll put it here.
Yeah.
Like I'm a journalist.
Yeah. For now. You want me to clip it for you? Yeah.
What do I do?
I gotcha. Good.
Okay. I'm his wife. Okay. Jeff comes to. He was in. Did he come to Kenya? Did you come to Kenya? He comes to Egypt. He comes to Ethiopia, and he will be in the city with us and go to the mountain, Lalibela, Aksum, blah blah blah. He was the most interesting person. He was, but there's one thing I want to say, and that's what I want to say. When his baby brother, had a stroke, he told me. He called me. Yeshi, I said yes. I know you are the most wonderful person, but please take care for my baby brother. I know you will do it, but take care for my baby brother. And every week he sent a flower with a smile. I think I have some of the pots in Washington in our house. And he will say, I love you, my baby brother. That's what I want to say, okay? Yeah.
Give me a mic. My mic.
Here we go.
Nope, here we go.
It's good for him actually to stand up.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Uncle John, you want to stand? There you go. This is great.
Where is his?
Where's his thing?
Joey's bringing it out. Yeah. Right there. Okay, you got it.
Well, I don't have anything much to say. It's just memories. Memories of Fern Hill. And pictures in my brain of Jeff and my father had been married earlier, and his daughter, Jeff and his daughter, checking eggs. We had an egg ranch, and you had to hold the eggs up to a light bulb to look for blood spots, so you couldn't sell eggs that had a blood spot. That's just one of those memories. And then, what else? Oh, Jeff, because he was tall, he played basketball. He was the center of that position in the basketball team at Rosemead High School. And we built a hoop on the garage of our house. And it was trying to get I could just remember it was a big deal trying to get the height right, or the measurements right. Because we didn't have now, you see basketball hoops, they'll be on a stand, and you can probably buy it at, Big Five or something like that. But those were the memories, and the memory of him and my sister checking eggs to see if there was blood spots in the eggs or not, and then the building that basketball hoop over our garage, and
Was that Rosemead?
yeah,
Yeah. So you had a bunkhouse.
huh?
You had a bunkhouse, didn't you? In Rosemead? Didn't you have a bunkhouse with?
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then at Fern Hill, and then it was, where's Aaron?
Right here.
Huh? Aaron, I can remember you running around at Fern Hill, and Bruce Anderson talking about Jeff, because he was going around building those cabins.
Right.
And he said, man, Jeff was doing a lot of work and stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of all I got.
Well, we want details about your trip to Baja.
Yeah, I wish I could give you details, but the memory is just of that little truck and going down, and then going for a swim in the ocean.
Yeah.
But I regret that I don't have any
Lots of
special.
wigglers and chairs.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
so
It would have been colorful.
yeah.
I know.
Anyway, thank you. So,
Uncle John, I remember you visiting us in Tepoztlan, Mexico. It
yeah.
was super cool.
Oh
And
yeah.
he was out sunning on the back patio of this big hacienda. He had the pesos over his eyes. Yeah. And then I remember the Vespa, John. We had the cool Vespa.
Oh yeah, Vespa. I remember the Vespa. And the VW Bug.
Yeah.
I ended up destroying that.
The Vespa. The VW Bug. Dad bought it for Uncle John. Yeah. Uncle John let me have that when I was in high school. When he was in.
You drove that around too then?
The VW bug for a couple of years when he was
Gray one?
Oh, yeah, the gray one. Yeah.
Guys, if you'll stick around, we have
I
more
wanna say
drinks.
something.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Peter.
Get a microphone.
Not Paul.
Old guy. Yeah.
Yes.
Hold on,
So
Peter.
sorry.
Really short.
Uncle John.
Yes.
Hi.
So really short. I just wanted to say that when I was little, Uncle Jeff, I would go to his house wherever it was, and I would see the bookshelves. You guys know the bookshelves. Always these big bookshelves, and I loved the bookshelves. And so if you come to my house, you will see replica of Uncle Jeff's bookshelves. I have them, and they're filled with poetry. Not filled with poetry, but there's a couple of shelves of poetry. And so in the last time I talked with Jeff, I called him up, I FaceTimed him, and I said, "You'll never guess where I am." And he said, "You're at my front door." And I said, "No, I'm at Forest Lawn. I'm standing at your father's grave." And I was able to show him the picture. And I said, "I have a question." I have a question. Is what's this blank spot next to, your father's grave? There was this place is covered, with tombstones. It's filled. And yet there's this blank spot. And he said, "Well, that was for my mother." And we don't know, Grammy, we don't know what happened exactly there. But you guys are looking to see if you can arrange to get Jeff's, and I think that would be so wonderful. So that's it. Yeah.
We're going to have a ton of tri-tip and chicken out here in a minute. So please have a cocktail. All right.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you for holding that. I don't trust this, leaning it up against a round table.
So we
No,
didn't-
probably not.
Well, so we couldn't get the required death certificate.
Right.
So what we plan to do, what we talked about, is that we got to get all the right paperwork,
Right.
which may take a little bit because we're
Sure,
trying to figure
no.
out where